Behold, the first Oz anime adaptation! Woo!
Woo!
We're gonna see a few of these as we go on, but this one, called The Wizard of Oz, is the first one to come out of Japan. In many ways, the Land of Oz has a lot in common with Japan, both historically and mythologically. Oz is isolated from the other lands surrounding it by the 4 deserts, and all those lands are on a large island or continent. Japan is an island nation that has been mostly isolationist throughout its history. Japanese mythology is full of unique monsters and fantastical creatures unlike any of those found in other cultures, so a Japanese Oz film would make a lot of sense, right? Well, in 1982, the first anime version of The Wizard of Oz was released. How does it hold up? It's pretty solid, although I have to say it's not one of the most memorable. It follows the book fairly closely, despite being shortened to roughly an hour and a half. Events are truncated for the sake of the quick runtime, so it doesn't drag, but it doesn't really stand out all that much either. Interestingly enough, this version of Dorothy is a blonde, which is technically correct to the book. Most adaptations, even the most faithful ones, have her as a brunette of some sort, but the big reason why this was changed in film adaptations was to clearly distinguish Dorothy from Alice. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz took a lot of inspiration from Alice's adventures in Wonderland to begin with, so it was an important distinction to make. There are some notable changes from the book. There are no silver shoes, nor are there necessarily ruby slippers. Instead, there are these red shoes that are mysteriously referred to as magic shoes, with no reference to their color. Also, instead of making the journey to Quadling Country to visit Glinda the Good Witch of the South, Glinda just shows up when it's convenient, so she's even more of a deus ex machina than she was in the 1939 film. The art style isn't my favorite out of these animated Oz adaptations, but it is important relative to where anime character designs were during this period. The classical anime look that most Westerners are familiar with would get cemented later on in the decade, and especially in the 90s, becoming the norm from then on. Overall, it's a solid adaptation, and a good example of what anime films looked like back in the early 80s. I found this film on YouTube once again. This website really was my saving grace for finding a lot of these more obscure Oz films. Interestingly enough, the writer, Akira Miyazaki, also wrote for the 1986 anime television version. How does that one compare? Stick around a little later in Oztober to find out. Oh, and one more thing. This version of Dorothy is really obsessed with pie. Yeah, pie! Where's Christopher Walken's character from Geely when you need him?